and then still enabling me to have autonomy to build out my own team and scale it in the way that I envision. That will go on, the business will of course go on longer than a series.
A $100 million Netflix deal ended with a bag of repackaged pretzels. When Meghan Markle launched her lifestyle ambitions after leaving royal life,
Meghan Markle takes a big gamble, launching a new luxury lifestyle brand. The name American Riviera Orchard, inspired by her Montecito home.
the streaming giant Netflix expected a media empire, not a show mocked for awkward cooking segments, viral clips, and disappointing viewership. By early 2026, the partnership behind her brand As Ever had quietly collapsed, while her old series Suits was still outperforming her new projects on the platform. So how did the biggest royal media deal in streaming history fall apart so quickly? And what exactly happened behind the scenes that led Netflix to walk away? Join us as we break down the story behind the deal that unraveled. The deal that was supposed to change everything. When Harry and Meghan announced in January 2020 that they were stepping back from their roles as senior members of the royal family, the financial question was immediate and practical. They were giving up their royal funding, their official security detail, and their institutional support. They also had a child and were about to have a second. They needed income. The answer they found was the most lucrative media arrangement any member of the British royal family had ever negotiated in private life. In September 2020, they signed a 5-year content deal with Netflix that was reported to be worth in excess of $100 million. It was the number that defined the Sussex brand for the next 5 years, a 9-figure validation of the bet they had made by leaving. The deal started well. Harry and Meghan, the 6-part documentary series that dropped in December 2022, became the biggest documentary debut in Netflix history. The platform had been nervous about it in the weeks before release. The trailer alone had generated more press coverage than most of their scripted drama launches, and the viewing numbers when it arrived confirmed that the public appetite for the Sussex story was genuine and enormous. Heart of Invictus followed in 2023, a documentary about Harry's Invictus games. Polo followed in 2024. The deal was producing content. The content was finding an audience. Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos had publicly defended the partnership in the face of critics, saying at a conference that the shoes Meghan wore in the Harry and Meghan trailer had sold out globally within hours of the footage appearing online. Heart of Invictus in 2023 covered the Invictus Games for wounded veterans and performed respectably. Polo in 2024 covered the professional polo world and generated modest engagement. By that point, the original Harry and Meghan documentary had established a ceiling and a floor. The ceiling was the extraordinary debut of a story the world had been waiting 2 years to hear told directly. The floor was the question of what came next once that story had been told. Live to Lead, a leadership documentary series produced under the Archewell banner in 2023, demonstrated that the platform's audience for Sussex content was specifically interested in Harry and Meghan themselves, not in projects they produced and curated from a distance. The lifestyle pivot was the answer to that finding. Bring Meghan back on screen in a format that put her at the center of the content, but in a completely different context from the palace drama. The theory was sound. The execution was a bag of repackaged pretzels. The problem was that the content that worked was content built on the Sussex story itself. The marriage, the royal exit, the grievances, the Oprah interview, the institutional failures of the palace. That story had a natural endpoint. Once Harry and Meghan had said what they had to say about their years as working royals, the documentary format had exhausted its primary subject. The pivot to a new identity, from royal outsiders telling their story to lifestyle curators sharing their domestic philosophy, was the bet that the second phase of the deal depended on, and it was the bet that failed. So what exactly was the plan, and how did it go from the biggest documentary debut in Netflix history to a ranking of 1,224th on the same platform? With love, Meghan. The concept, the launch, and the pretzels. The lifestyle pivot was not a new idea for Meghan. Before the royal family and before Suits made her famous, she had run a blog called The Tig that combined travel recommendations, food content, fashion advice, and personal essays in a format that predated the Instagram influencer economy by several years. The TIG was genuinely well regarded and had a loyal readership before she shut it down in 2017, when the relationship with Harry became official, and the royal protocols that governed her public presence made independent content creation impossible. With Love, Meghan was, in a sense, the version of the TIG that the $100 million Netflix deal was supposed to enable at scale, a cooking and entertaining show filmed at a farmhouse near their Montecito home, featuring celebrity guests, lifestyle tips, and a curated aesthetic of warm-toned domesticity. The announcement came on January 2, 2025. The premiere was originally scheduled for January 15th, but was pushed to March 4th when the wildfires that devastated parts of Southern California made a high-profile lifestyle launch feel tonally catastrophic. Season 1 arrived on March 4th, 2025, and in its first week was watched for 12.6 million hours, ranking in Netflix's global top 10 in 47 countries within a single day. The opening numbers looked, on the surface, like a successful launch. Netflix announced that filming for Season 2 had already been completed. As ever, the lifestyle brand that launched alongside the show with jams, teas, honey, and baking mixes sold out its inaugural collection in under an hour. Meghan posted on Instagram that she was overwhelmed and grateful. The machine appeared to be working. What the first week numbers obscured was the rate at which the audience disappeared. By the end of the first half of 2025, with Love, Meghan had accumulated 5.3 million views, ranking 383rd among all Netflix productions, sitting just behind Peaky Blinders Season 2, which had been released 11 years earlier in 2014. Suits, the legal drama Meghan had left 8 years earlier, ranked more than 200 places higher. Season 2, which dropped in August 2025, failed to crack Netflix's weekly top 10 at all. In its entire run from August through December 2025, it was watched 2 million times, finishing ranked 1,224th. And the content itself was generating attention, just not the kind that converts into loyal viewers. The moment that became the symbol of the show's fundamental problem was Meghan removing Trader Joe's peanut butter pretzel nuggets from their original packaging, placing them into a clear plastic bag, and labeling the bag with her guest's name. The clip was posted to social media with the caption, "I'm so glad Meghan Markle has a new show on Netflix where I can watch her take pretzels out of a labeled bag and put them into a new bag, then label it." The post was viewed 1.6 million times, 10,000 people liked it. None of them watched the show. The raw broccoli crudité wreath came later. So did the moment when Mindy Kaling called her Meghan Markle, and she corrected it on camera, smiling through clenched teeth, saying, "You know I'm Sussex now." The Irish Times described the show as Martha Stewart by way of Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, with a sprinkling of tradwife Instagram. Only the worst possible version of all three, with Markle a black hole of beige throughout. The overall Rotten Tomatoes score settled at 23%. The holiday special, which aired in December 2025, scored 14%. The Telegraph's review called it quite mad and a little bit sad, featuring Meghan making a vegetable crudité wreath out of raw broccoli and desperation. The Guardian gave the special 2 stars. One critic described the experience as an emetic barrage of Meghan literally skipping through a Christmas tree farm. Another noted that the holiday special included footage of her dog Guy, who had died in January 2025, meaning the special had been filmed months in advance and broadcast with footage of a dead dog as if it were current. So after all of that, the reviews, the numbers, the pretzel clip going more viral than the actual show, what did Netflix do next? The cancellation that wasn't called a cancellation. Netflix does not use the word cancelled when it can avoid it, and the sequence of events around With Love, Meghan was managed with the institutional, careful language of a company that still had a working relationship with the people it was parting ways with. The first signal came in January 2026, when Page Six reported that the show would not be returning for a 3rd season. The exact phrasing used by insiders was, "It's not returning as a series. There have been conversations about holiday specials, but there is nothing in the works yet." Netflix did not issue a formal cancellation statement. They did not have to. The numbers had issued it for them. Season 2's viewership of 2 million across 5 months put it in context. Netflix's hit shows routinely accumulate tens of millions of views in their first week. Wednesday, the streamer's biggest recent success, had topped viewing charts for weeks. With Love, Meghan, in its entire second season run, was watched less than some mid-tier Netflix titles accumulate in a single weekend. The comparison that stung most was the Suits comparison, a show that had been off the air since 2019, that Meghan had left 8 years earlier, was pulling more Netflix viewers than the new show she had built a $100 million brand around. The second signal came on March 6, 2026, when Netflix confirmed it was ending its investment in As Ever, the lifestyle brand it had partnered with to coincide with the show's launch. The statement was cordial and carefully worded. Netflix said Meghan's passion for elevating everyday moments had inspired the creation of the brand, and that they were glad to have played a role in bringing her vision to life. As Ever said it was grateful for the partnership and that the brand was ready to stand on its own. Both statements were technically true and structurally identical to every corporate split statement ever issued. Complimentary, forward-looking, and entirely devoid of the information everyone actually wanted, which was whose decision this was and why it happened now. An industry source told Page Six the answer directly. Since her show did not go on, keeping the brand tie-in did not make sense. The show was the platform for the brand. The show was gone. The brand was on its own. What remained was the scaled-back First Look deal, which gives Netflix the right of first refusal on future film and television projects from Archewell Productions, the Sussex production company. One confirmed project under this arrangement is an adaptation of Jasmine Guillory's novel The Wedding Date, with Tracy Oliver writing the screenplay and Harry and Meghan producing. Girls Trip screenwriter Tracy Oliver and producer Tracy Ryerson are attached alongside the Archewell team, with the project announced via Deadline in December 2025. It is a behind-the-camera role, no hosting or presenting, and definitely no Meghan on screen performing a lifestyle she has not yet convinced her audience she lives, which is, one could argue, the direction that the viewing data had been pointing toward for the better part of a year. The Hollywood Reporter described the First Look arrangement as a more selective approach to future collaboration, which in entertainment industry language means we are not walking away entirely, but we are no longer writing blank checks. But what does all of this mean for the money? And is the financial picture as troubled as the media coverage suggests? The money conversation. The financial narrative around Harry and Meghan tends to collapse into two equally inaccurate versions. The crisis version, in which the couple is on the verge of bankruptcy and desperately casting around for income, and the dismissal version, in which they have so much money that any discussion of their finances is irrelevant. The reality is more structured than either version allows. Harry's net worth in 2026 is estimated at approximately $60 million, built across inheritance, media deals, legal settlements, and investment. He inherited approximately $10 million from Princess Diana when he turned 25. In early 2024, he received a further inheritance from the estates of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, reported at approximately £46 million. In January 2025, he received an estimated $12 million in damages from News Group Newspapers, publisher of The Sun, following his phone hacking case. He commands speaking fees of over $1 million per appearance through the Harry Walker Agency. His memoir Spare, published in January 2023, sold over 1.4 million copies in its first day, the fastest-selling nonfiction book in history at the time, and earned him a $20 million advance as part of a 4-book deal with Penguin Random House worth up to $40 million total. The Spotify deal, reportedly worth between $18 and $25 million for a 3-year podcasting arrangement, ended in June 2023, after Meghan produced just 12 episodes of her podcast Archetypes. The joint statement said the parties had mutually agreed to part ways. Bill Simmons, a senior Spotify executive, was less diplomatic in a separate public context, describing the deal in terms that suggested the output had not matched the investment, though his comment referred more broadly to the podcast's commercial performance relative to its contract value. The Spotify money had already been paid. The deal was simply not renewed. The original $100 million Netflix deal produced Harry and Meghan the documentary Heart of Invictus, Polo, and With Love, Meghan. It has been replaced by the First Look arrangement, which is structured differently. It does not guarantee a fixed dollar amount, but instead gives Netflix first option on Sussex projects, with fees negotiated per project. Reports confirmed in July 2025 that the Sussexes would not be renewing their original Netflix deal on its existing terms, and that the new arrangement represented a smaller financial commitment from the platform. The couple is also reported to have reduced staffing costs at Archewell, their foundation, amid the revenue transition. The Montecito estate, purchased in 2020 for $14.7 million, is a significant asset in a market that has consistently appreciated. The couple is also reported to own a property in Portugal, which sources suggest may be generating rental income. Harry's better-up role as Chief Impact Officer continues at the Silicon Valley coaching platform, valued at $1.7 billion, though his exact compensation has not been disclosed. Their investments include stakes in Ethic, a sustainable investment firm, and Cleaver Blends, a wellness coffee brand. Reports from late 2025 suggested the couple had been cutting back on staffing at Archewell, their California-based foundation, as the revenue profile shifted from guaranteed deal money to project-by-project income. In September 2025, Harry donated £1.1 million personally to children in need, a charitable contribution that does not suggest a household in genuine distress. The financial picture is not one of crisis, but of transition. The high watermark of the 2020 to 2025 deal period, in which fixed multi-million-dollar contracts provided guaranteed income regardless of performance, has been replaced by a model in which income depends more directly on what the projects actually produce for their platforms. That is a different kind of financial life. It is not necessarily a worse one, but it requires the work to actually land. That distinction matters because it changes the risk profile entirely. A first-look deal that pays per project is a different instrument than a $100 million guarantee. The safety net is smaller. The performance requirement is real. So with the Netflix money restructured, the Spotify deal gone, the lifestyle show canceled, and the brand operating independently, what does the next chapter actually look like? As Ever, the brand and the pivot that has to work. As Ever launched in April 2025 with a collection of shelf-stable foods, teas, jams, honey, and baking mixes packaged in a warm, artisanal aesthetic that matched the visual language of the Netflix show. The inaugural collection sold out in under an hour, which Meghan described on Instagram as just the start. The brand subsequently expanded into wines, candles, and home goods, and has positioned itself in the premium lifestyle space alongside Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop as a reference point, though the comparison has also been used critically, given Goop's own history of skeptical press coverage. Netflix had been a financial partner in As Ever, supporting the brand's launch through its consumer products division alongside the show. The end of that partnership, announced on March 6, 2026, removes the streaming platform's investment and infrastructure support from the brand's operations. Meghan's team has framed the separation as a natural graduation. The brand had a successful launch year, grew rapidly, and is now ready to operate independently. As Ever's own statement said, it had experienced meaningful and rapid growth and was ready to stand on its own. What standing on its own means in practical terms is finding the retail infrastructure, distribution partnerships, and marketing reach that the Netflix platform had been providing. The brand's social media presence is strong. Meghan's Instagram following ensures visibility, but the gap between social media visibility and sustained commercial revenue is the gap that most celebrity lifestyle brands fail to bridge. The initial sellout of the launch collection demonstrated demand exists. Converting that demand into repeat purchasing across an expanding product line without the promotional engine of a streaming show behind it is the challenge that the next 12 months will define. Meghan told Fortune's Most Powerful Women Summit in October 2025 that she was rethinking the format question entirely, asking how to give someone a recipe in 2 minutes rather than 30, and describing a move toward shorter, more digital native content. She also launched a podcast called Confessions of a Female Founder in 2025, positioning herself as a business voice in addition to a lifestyle figure, an attempt to diversify the identity beyond the cooking and entertaining format that, with love, Meghan had been built around. Sources close to the situation told Page Six that people would see similar cooking and crafting content on Meghan's social channels for the brand, but in more bite-sized form. The transition from streaming series to social content is, in one reading, a strategic pivot to a format better suited to her audience. In another reading, it is the same content at a fraction of the production cost and without the viewership data that publicly demonstrates how few people were choosing to watch. The advantage of moving to social content is that failure becomes invisible. The disadvantage is that the potential upside, the kind of cultural reach that a hit Netflix show provides, is also absent. What As Ever needs is not a better Instagram presence. It needs sustained commercial revenue from people buying jams and teas repeatedly over time. And whether the brand has built the kind of loyalty that drives repeat purchasing is the question the next 12 months will answer. The Wedding Date adaptation under the Archewell production banner gives Harry and Meghan a producing credit on a Netflix film without requiring either of them to be on screen. If the film performs, it opens the door to a sustainable model as behind-the-camera producers, a model that generates income from the work rather than from their personal presence, which is a more durable foundation than a show that depends on the host's likability ratings. So after 5 years, $100 million, a lifestyle show that finished 1,224th, and a brand that is now on its own, where exactly does Meghan Markle stand in the media landscape of 2026? Where Meghan and Harry actually stand in 2026. The Sussex situation in 2026 is more complicated than either the crisis narrative or the success narrative captures. Harry is $60 million solvent, legally active. He testified in January 2026 in his case against Associated Newspapers alongside Elton John and Elizabeth Hurley, and commercially viable as a speaker and author in ways that do not depend on Netflix or on Meghan's public approval ratings. His Invictus games continue. His Better Up role continues. The speaking circuit is open to him at seven-figure fees for as long as his name carries the weight it currently carries, which is likely to be a long time regardless of what happens with any particular content deal. In September 2025, he donated £1.1 million personally to children in need. Meghan's position is more exposed than Harry's because her commercial model in the 2023 to 2025 period was built on personal visibility. A cooking show requires the host to be watchable. A lifestyle brand requires the founder to be aspirational. Both require an audience that responds positively to the person at the center of them. And the critical reception to With Love, Meghan suggested that the public appetite for Meghan as a lifestyle presenter, as opposed to Meghan as a royal disruptor, or Meghan as a cultural figure in a broader sense, was more limited than the initial deal had assumed. The show had celebrity guests including Chrissy Teigen, Tan France, Abigail Spencer, Jose Andres, Roy Choi, and Alice Waters. It had polished production, a beautiful setting, and a clearly defined aesthetic. What it did not have was a reason for people to keep watching once the novelty of Meghan Markle having a cooking show had been absorbed and processed. The 23% Rotten Tomatoes score and the 1,224th place ranking are not the scores of a show that was hated. They are the scores of a show that people tried once and did not return to, which is in some ways a more difficult outcome to reverse. The deeper issue is that the Sussex brand was built in two phases that required opposite things from the audience. Phase 1, the documentary, the Oprah interview, the spare memoir, the palace exit narrative, required the audience to be witnesses, to observe a conflict, take a position, and follow its resolution. That is a narrative structure with natural momentum. Phase 2, the lifestyle show, the jam brand, the wellness content, required the audience to be participants, to incorporate Meghan's domestic philosophy into their own lives, to buy the products, to return for the next episode to learn the next tip. That is a much harder ask of an audience that arrived for the drama and stayed for a while out of curiosity. Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos, in his 2022 defense of the Sussex partnership, had said the fascination with Meghan Markle was real and was being dismissed unfairly. He was right that the fascination was real. What the viewing figures for With Love, Meghan demonstrated, was that the fascination had a specific focus. People were interested in Meghan's story, in her relationship with the royal family, in the conflict and the exit and the aftermath. They were considerably less interested in watching her repackage Trader Joe's pretzels and serve raw broccoli to celebrity friends. The $100 million deal had been premised on an assumption about the nature of the audience's interest. The assumption was not entirely wrong. It was wrong about which part of the story the audience had actually been watching. What comes next for the Sussexes is the version of themselves that does not depend on a nine-figure content deal to validate. What is the actual verdict on the Sussex media empire, and what does it say about what audiences were actually paying for all along? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.